Hey everybody, we're back to try and figure out how Samura gets these lines. We have different series.
I've got a few
Um,
different uh, tools here. Uh, I've got a stick that I picked from outside from a plant.
okay.
And it's a nice stick. You can see the edge has got some you know some interesting contour to it. I have a beat up uh, a beat up sable brush that's got some like a dry brush thing happening to it right now. I've got a chopstick as per Carson's suggestion. In this case, I got a plastic one. It's a Totoro chopstick.
Oh, that will be interesting.
And then this is not going to be, this is too large to be of use, but this is a, traditional sume brush, squirrel hair to a tip. And this particular one is a large one. I usually favor these fairly large because I feel like you're going to use an effect like this. You want to be real bold with it. But really, if this is the type of thing he's using, which I don't know if it is, he was using a smaller one than this. This is actually not going to be useful to me.
Yeah, I've seen a couple videos of people getting similar lines with those types of brushes. So it might be a brush, but just because I saw the video, and let me reiterate again, I'm not using a chopstick because it's an Asian artist. I'm using a chopstick because I saw a mangaka on Naoki Urasawa's Manbin using a chopstick to draw. A, I thought it was fun. B, it kind of gave the lines that I see in here. So that's where that's coming from.
Well,
I'm starting the image just with the head. I think he probably drew using just, they call it the Maru pen, but or the mapping pen, but I think it's basically it's the same as a Hunt 102 from what I've seen on Manbin. So I think he starts with that, then gets the head and the hand in there. What's your instinct on how this?
I think you're exactly right. And I think that I have fucked up by not printing his head.
Oh well.
So I'm going to print the head now while you're starting there. So you've got a jump start on me here.
Yeah, well you're always like 3 times faster than me anyways.
Well,
So I think the head got put in. This one luckily is a fast image. Uh,
yeah, I think he's doing the heads first.
Head, and this one looks like hand to me because the hand has the like more controlled thinner lines that I'm associating it, and the Hunt 102 that I'm using is perfect for this. I will say I'm noticing that I regret the fact that we're never warmed up when we do these things
Right.
because we're always jumping in, and anyone who's ever worked with these tools, like no matter how much you're using them on the day to day, which I don't get to do that anymore because I teach so much, but there's always a warm up period. So I always feel like, oh man, I jumped right into the face and then I botched it, which was a bit so brave on his part, I guess, to start with the face.
Wow, he's probably making little scritchy lines on the side of the paper or whatever.
When he's probably been drawing, like laying it out in pencil all day and is maybe not warmed up with the tool, but is pretty well warmed up in terms of his hand-eye coordination and all systems go on getting his hand to move where it wants to move.
So, if you were making a monthly comic, Carson, would you do a page a day, a la Dave Sim method, complete it all the way, or would you batch ink things?
Ah, that's a good question. It When I was a kid and I wanted to be a professional comic artist, I knew that you had to do a page a day. I was actually just telling some of my students this, that even when I quit doing comics, I kept that mentality of don't start anything that you can't finish in a day. Like when I was starting to paint and I was
Right.
thinking more of being an illustrator, it was like don't do anything you can't finish in a day.
Right.
Now whether
But that's
that translated to like pencils and inks for me, or like pencils all first and then inks That's what you're asking, right? Would I pencil and ink a page and then
Yeah.
pencil and ink a page on a monthly book?
Well,
I don't
there's
know.
a
I
certain
would probably batch the inks.
there's a certain efficiency in doing that, especially the warm up period and everything like that. I did a comic, I guess it's 3 years ago now, right after my second son was born. I did a comic for a vendor, or not a vendor, a client who wanted a 60-page full color comic in a 2 month period, and I batched the entire thing, and it's my only one and only experience with batching a comic like that, and it was very satisfying.
Like pencils first, then inks, then colors.
Exactly right. Oh, well, yeah, I laid out the whole thing because I had to get approval for every step of the process.
Mm.
So that was a big part
I
of it.
will say that on Strange Death, Dave was always trying to get me to do it a page at a time, and I would tell him I'll lay them all out, then I'll trace them all, and then I will ink them all, because for that style of inking especially, it's very flow state, and
Right.
I couldn't just get in and out and in and out of the flow state. Like, there would be the first couple pages that I inked would be real garbage, and then doing it 8 hours a day every day, I'd get in the state. So, um, for that's my preference. But doing, like you said, a monthly book, I don't know. But my preference right now is always batching, but that's why I would never do a monthly book.
Right.
Okay, so I've got the hand, and I think this is probably, what about what got done. Actually, I should probably finish. I'm gonna grab a brush pen real quick and finish this S on his hand. But I think this is probably about how much was done before he switched over to either the
Mystery
reed
tool.
pen or whatever, the chopstick. Yeah.
Yeah, so we talked about this in the video that accompanied this video, but we were talking about the certain types of characteristic line, and I was speculating it's a reed pen, and Carson was speculating it might be a chopstick. When I say reed pen specifically, I mean one that's been cut to a square tip.
So it'd be kind of like having a chopstick and then splitting the end.
You got it. Except the flatter um, than a chopstick.
Yeah,
So,
but this I'm gonna use the back of the chopstick.
oh, okay.
Like on the chopstick that I've got, it's got, I'm not talking about using the look at this, I haven't even broken them apart yet. I'm not talking about using the part that you eat with, the round part.
Okay.
I'm talking about these ones that I bought. And again, who knows what he has. I remember chopsticks having kind of a triangular thing to them.
Mm-hmm.
But these ones that I got, I went to Target and I asked the lady who worked there, "Do you guys have chopsticks?" She's like, "Nah." And then this other customer, like, sir, come here. She gave me these. But they have yeah, it's very blunt, flat, and then it's got a flat edge and a rounded edge. I was hoping for something triangular because there's these triangular marks, but I think I can get those still. So I'm I think what you're talking about with the reed pen would be to grab this and then split it, and it would be
Sort,
pretty.
sort of, but it looks like this. So you can get a reed pen that looks kind of like this as the tip. Maybe made with bamboo, maybe made with
Oh,
reed,
okay.
and the tip itself can be thinner. But basically the square edge like that is what can give it that turning quality.
Well, part of what I'm looking at here too isn't just this like triangular mark that's like these kind of triangular marks, but that it like dries out.
Yeah.
There's like these rough, like dry brush looking spots, but it doesn't seem like brush. So
So
I'm having I'll, I'll
yeah, let's
also
just
say I'm having a really hard time touching this damn chopstick because I am, and I was worried about this. I have like, I don't know why, but a real like tactile aversion to this type of wood. Like if you get a wooden spatula or those old, you would get ice cream and they'd come with those little wooden spoons. It's like chalk on a chalkboard
hmm.
for me, and I find it really like a distressing sensation. So I'm a little worried about. Yeah, it's grossing me out.
I have a garden variety stick, And one of the things I'm interested in a tool like this is which parts are juicy and which parts are not. So you have anytime you have an implement that's not necessarily intended for, drawing, you have the load question of when you just dip, you have a heavy load, and as you use it, your load diminishes. In this case, it looks to me like the majority of the heavy load is happening on the arm.
Yeah, this is another thing I'm worried about is even if I'm right about the tool he's using, I don't have any sense for it's kind of giving me the line quality I want, but any sense for that load issue you're talking about.
Well,
Oh, it feels terrible to draw with this. It's so squeaky.
yeah. So my stick is performing pretty well.
Yeah. Oh, maybe he just used a stick out of the backyard.
I mean, I don't know. It's doing a hell of a lot better than my attempt at copying his fine line
Ooh.
work was.
Ooh. So one of the things I'm really curious about is this triangular mark that ends a
Right.
lot of the lines, and that's why I was hoping to find a chopstick that had like a more triangle. Oh, that worked.
And it's at the turns, right? I mean, not to say
Yeah,
that you can't manipulate it with the way that you turn the tool, but that seems to be where the characteristic aspect of it is on a turn.
and that's why I didn't feel like a brush to me because
No,
of
it's something hard. 100% something hard. It's not a brush. I think you were absolutely correct. I was wrong.
and well, I mean, you might be right with the type of pen that you're talking about. The other thing is like right here when I did lose my ink load, when I lost my load, when I blew my load of ink, it does get the scratchy, like right there, it like dry
Hmm.
brushed out, but then I can push harder and the ink comes back.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm having a real hard time.
So there's like a pressure thing.
There's totally pressure sensitivity. This works pretty good. Yeah. Oh, there we go. That's it. That's that line right there. Boom. I don't know that this is what he was using, but you can do it with a chopstick.
So the squared off line could be the pressure down, and
And also like, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
not necessarily just a turning.
But also like this line here, I went down and then yeah, you go boom.
Right. Huh.
And so I think there's and it gets that dry effect. Your stick's doing the same thing though.
It is. Well, I
Maybe that
mean,
was too much.
they're both wood.
Yeah, I think it's that this is one of those where we're gonna have to go with the spirit of it because
Right.
and this is what makes it interesting is it has baked into it like no matter how much this artist is in in tune with the tools, they're intentionally oh yeah, this works perfect. Once I quit trying to mimic his line exactly. Um that chaos of what they're doing
Yeah. It
is
goes
part of
back.
what makes the image so alive. And that's what's so cool about his books anyways, is that liveliness.
So he is. I think we both agree using multiple tools in stages, not just because he likes both tools, but because you get control over one, and the other you have to sort of ride the tiger.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is super cool for this armband that he's wearing too.
All right, I'm gonna switch sides on my stick here. I'm gonna use because one, my fine pointed stick is actually losing some sharpness, and number
Oh,
two, You're doing so well with the blunt end of the stick. I'm curious to see if I can get.
I'm having a harder time now. He might have switched over to brush for some of this stuff
Really?
as well.
Hmm.
Some of the bigger just marks in here, I think might have been he came back over with like, well, he could
I
have
don't
just been
know.
doing because this gets a nice triangular mark, but could be just for some of these biggest marks. I wonder if he went back in because it's kind of like when I draw with a razor blade, it almost like fades out to a wash too quick. Like I can't get the whole mark all at once.
Like the ink doesn't come off of the ink doesn't come off the tool in the right
Yeah, it's
manner,
not,
or
at least not in the way I'm using it.
so look
But
at like the
I'll do it here. Like it drags and makes like a texture here, and in here there's some very obvious like just big black marks.
yeah. See, I'm getting those by just pressing down. I don't know.
I think the whatever stick tool, reed pen, chopstick, whatever it is that he's using is used for the contours, and then he might go back and because in a lot of his work there's obvious brush work too.
Mm-hmm.
I picked this panel A because we'll be able to finish it up pretty quick, and B because it was mostly constructed out of this curious line. Oh yeah, that was some beautiful chaos right there. And
Yeah,
then
I'm
with
kind.
the load on the chopstick, it kind of loads up. You can, oh well, I ran out of load on this side, but I can switch over and draw on like that corner. And depending on what, what the structure of, if he was using chopsticks, was it a triangle? Did it, like mine has a rounded edge? So I could almost, one thing I was thinking maybe he was doing is like stamping. But I thought maybe that's where like the triangle marks came from, is stamp in and then pull out like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that would, it would depend on the, like if you had a triangular top of the chopstick, then that would work better. That is a cool look to it that I could see being useful. Like, oh yeah, this works really good. Ah, that's the mark I wanted right there. Dark line fades out and then has that weird little
Huh.
cappy at the end.
Well, I think you might be onto something.
Your stick looks really good.
It's not bad.
Just any old stick from the backyard.
Yeah, I used to have a drawing exercise I'd do with my advanced drawing students where we would do a drawing in place using only things that were there.
I'm gonna steal that from you.
Yeah, so I wouldn't prompt them and we wouldn't practice. I would just send them out into, we would go out into the schoolyard or whatever, and to a place where they were going to be, there's lots of trees and things like that, and then I would give them bottles of ink, and they would have to construct their own drawing tools.
I'm gonna do that. That's smart. That's like a good critical thinking thing too.
Mm-hmm. And it gave a nice reprieve to people who were detail oriented,
Yeah, they need that.
because you get certain kids who only want to do finicky things,
Yeah.
and if you deprive them of their ability to be finicky, there's
Well, I'll make them draw with like dipping their thumb into ink sometimes.
ooh,
Like you got to use your fingers. I don't do that in basic drawing. I don't know why. I always did that in figure drawing. But probably because I had a teacher who did it to me in figure drawing, and it came out so good. I stole it from him. It's not on this drawing, But there are points in the book too where he does this thing,
The scrub, yeah.
and the way it gets the you know, it starts out lighter and gets darker seemed to work. I think I'm pretty much done with the chopstick. Unfortunately, like I'm actually really enjoying it. It is pretty much giving me the look I wanted, whether that's what he was using or if I'm just using the chopstick similarly to what the reed pen would produce. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I looking at the well, I'll have to pick up some of those. Maybe we can do this for a future thing. We Carson and I were talking earlier about how we are going to do a Patreon. The biggest issue for us, we want to do all the things that people are asking us to do. Like a tech talk, more video reviews of certain series and things like that. We want to do the Cerebus overview, which seems intimidating in size, but
yeah, it's like if you do one a month, then you're committed to the same project Dave had, where it's
right,
like 25 years later we'll be done.
Yeah. So the real issue is time, and in my case, like as a freelancer, time is literally money. In that, basically, the more time we do stuff, the less freelance work I can take.
The less money you're making for your
right. And so Patreon seems like a pretty reasonable way to supplement that and do the things that people are interested in seeing, but not have it be just a bottomless pit of
my time limits mainly from I've got a job, so I'm not as concerned about well, that's not true. I take a lot of extra work on top of my full-time job. I take a lot of extra part-time teaching work that I do at night, and
right.
I spend a lot of my weekends doing grading and stuff to help support Ori while she's going to school, at least. So yeah, that's a bit of a limit on my time.
Well, which is all to say that if when we get this going, and if we have a bunch of people who are interested in looking at tools and things, we can do a tool assessment where we break down different things and show different exercises for different tools and things like that. Something
and
like
I ordered that Jose Smith book.
Oh, good.
That you recommended. So I would really like to do a series where we go through each one of his techniques in there, and then we can each do our own little illustration with it. No more than an hour or so.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great series as well for that.
And then I have all of my. The other thing I was thinking about is I have all of my drawing. Like a lot of times we're talking about drawing concepts on the channel, and I have all of my videos that go to my students, especially post COVID. I had to go through, and every lecture that I do and every demonstration I do had to become a pre-recorded video. And so I basically have, I don't even know how many hundreds of videos that my students get, and they're mine. They're on
Right.
YouTube, but they're not listed. But it's not like the school owns them. So I would be happy to share those too.
Fantastic.
Because it's like you can't. I mean, you can talk about comics just in context of comics, but you're drawing, you're using art concepts, you're using composition concepts, you're using design concepts, you're using drawing concept. Painting, I guess I wouldn't put painting. I refuse to do painting online, basically. It's too much about the way it looks in person. But yeah, most of that stuff is, so I think it would be of benefit to a lot of people, is to see all that training. I can put up the Raymond cheat sheets that I made for myself to practice that brush. I have this brush pen, and it was running out of ink, so now I'm just dipping my brush pen into my ink. And that's actually working fairly well. That's cool.
he is really got it is interesting, the Raymond thing here. I mean, the other similarity is sort of, Dave's take on Raymond was like basically he could start to ink like Raymond when he imagined that he was eager to get golfing and driving in his sports car.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that that is a very deep, meaningful observation, um, applied to the finish. There. I don't know if you think there's an aspect of that to Samura here.
Well, he just seems to be, and I think Raymond as well, committed to calligraphy,
Right.
and that you can't futz about with a calligraphic line. You can't, and that's why I think, oh, I did some smearing, whatever. That's why I kind of want to keep drawing with the chopstick, but I don't have any more lines that I need to do with the
Right.
chopstick because I was having so much fun not being in control.
Right.
Uh,
Well, this is similar to our previous recreation video where, if we just did it from scratch now, we would have something that probably looked a lot more like the finished product.
well, but it's that thing where it's like in the spirit of, because you can't, if you go too slow, you can't mimic those lines. They just don't work.
Right.
So there are certain artists that you can do that with. For example, there was like tears on Strange Death of Alex Raymond, where depending on who it was, you could do that more or less. So, like Alex Raymond, actually, I could slow down and be pretty specific per line and have it come out looking like a Raymond. Stan Drake, you have to draw like a maniac. Leonard Starr is even more predictable. Like you can really just trace his stuff and still have it look like Leonard Starr. Alex Raymond a little bit less so. So I had a like mental tier system where it was like, okay, Leonard Starr I can trace exactly. Alex Raymond mostly. Al Williamson has a little bit more chaos, but kind of veers towards the Raymond where it's fairly traceable, but there is chaos. And then Stan Drake and blanking, I should know his name. The guy that drew Big Ben Bolt.
Oh, right. Cullen.
Colin Murphy, yeah, his stuff also has a lot of chaos in it, and you just can't perfectly replicate chaos. So this style that Samura has, like he's relying on the chaos, and even his hatching lines with the controlled lines, they're very fast,
Mm-hmm.
very fluid. Like right here,
Yeah.
he's obviously just going like,
I'm gonna try. I've got a second printout. I'm gonna try the big lines one more time, as fast as I can make them.
I'm just gonna draw with the chopstick.
Yeah.
I'm done with the image.
Yeah. Me
To me,
too.
it's the same as drawing with the razor blades and stuff, or any pin that makes a big. That was the other thing that's hard about Stan Drake and guys that use pins that make bigger marks is I tend to have my hand on the paper. So these artists, I believe, get good at drawing with their hands off of the paper. Otherwise, you wind up with stuff like this where you're smudging it. Now, Sergio Topi, I think we found last week did, but I'm just gonna try and draw.
You suppose? What do you suppose Samura's pencils look like? Because he's indicating like these, the black areas. I mean, at least somewhat. He's not pulling that out from nowhere.
It's weird because he finishes stuff in pencil too, so
Well, his pencil
he's
finishing
obviously,
though is completely different. I mean, it's like the work of a different person.
that's what I'm saying is like I don't know how you get someone like that, and then he's like, okay, but in this instance I'm going to be finishing in ink, so I'm going to hold back on that. I don't know. It's curious because I feel like these, like he hardly would do any work on the pencils, and that's got to be such a different mindset from when he's like, okay, now I'm fully sketching. I don't know if there's evidence of what his penciling process. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
in those more finished pencils or not.
No, I don't think so. I don't think his approach is so different. Um, I mean, it's almost like his pencil finishing is intentionally obscuring any process, whereas this is inviting you to see the finished mark as part of the process.
Yeah, but I mean, he uses a lot of the same, like, I call it directional mark making, not just hatching or cross hatching, but that for him, it's more of like this. It always looks like it's raining almost.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even when he's shading, he's very. You can see the direction that he's working in.
All right. Well, this is going to be probably the least like any image that we've done, uh, but very instructive. And I'm gonna have to get a pair of the disposable chopsticks that you have. My stick thing is very interesting and usable, but I don't think is what he's doing.
I kind of feel like, in a sense, this is closer than some of the other ones that I've done because I've just had to let it be in the spirit of it. Um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see him on screen. I mean, I definitely not. There's not as much finesse in what I've done today as there normally is, and there's definitely not as much finesse as there is in his art.
Well, he's how many times has he drawn this particular face with that particular tool at this time? I mean, that's one of those things like, you know.
Yeah, but there is something about the quality, and this is what I was so excited to do this about, the quality of the chopstick, similar to the razor blade from the Topi video, where I am. So we were talking about the automaticity thing, like
Mm-hmm.
that. Right now, I have to very consciously be like, huh, I wonder if I put it on this edge and then like roll over and flick,
Right.
or if I put it on this edge and roll over and flick, or this tool has a flat edge and a round edge. The round edge seems to make a more varied mark. I do, you know, there's these things where I have to think about them really consciously. And that was something I had to do learning to draw like Raymond is, okay, I've got a brush, I got a mark. I have to sit there and look at it and be like, okay, he held his hand this way or this way or this way.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of that we could figure out with these razor blades and these chopsticks. And then once you've spent time consciously focusing on that, then when you're drawing, your brain is focused on those higher order things of like, hey, I'm drawing a nose, and
Right.
it just makes that, oh, see, like, boo, I'm getting there already. Like, that made a cool line.
Yeah. And next time we do a new tool, we probably should just do tool exploration like we're doing now before we do the image.
No, well,
You like that
no,
word?
because one thing that I found with the Raymond is, don't do a tool exploration ahead of time. That's how I actually like having to look at what someone else has done and decode. Like I said,
Mm.
on some of Raymond's stuff, there's like, I can do it with this chopstick. There will be like those rectangular lines he gets, and they'll have where they start leaning one way or the other, and then sometimes they'll lean, you know, where it's leaning left rather than leaning right. And I would have to look at that and think, okay, I'm pretty sure he wasn't spinning his paper all around. So that means he was either having his hand this way or having his hand above it, or he was starting here and dragging
Yeah.
this way, or starting here and dragging this way. And having to sit there and puzzle that out about someone else's actual marks
Mm.
made me think about aspects of the tool that I wouldn't have even considered ahead of
Okay.
time. So I feel like that with this too. If I just picked up a chopstick and drew with it, I don't think I would consider as many varieties of ways to turn it and twist it, because I wouldn't be aiming towards a particular. I
Target.
don't know. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, maybe for you, you're more exploratory. I'm sure it's different for person.
No, no. Maybe you're right. It depends on what my goal is, I suppose. If my goal was to forge a fake Samura original, and probably this would be a multi-stage process that will be going back and forth between exploration. And yeah, you're getting it now. That's really interesting. I'm gonna have to get some of those.
Well, and that's part of what I did with the Raymond is once you find a particularly characteristic mark, like
Right.
these little cap things that I'm coming up with, I would isolate them. And so that's what I was saying, something that I'll put onto the Patreon is I will isolate them and then do practice sheets.
Right.
So I will isolate them in Photoshop and then basically have them go, oh, that was that mark. There we go. Where it capped, that's in there somewhere. And then it, okay, see. So now I've isolated that mark and I can practice it where it caps off again with that. It almost looks like they went like this
Right.
and made a T shape, but now I can get it all in one go.
Huh.
So then what I would do is take that mark in Photoshop and rotate it. And then I would practice it. Okay, can I do it this way?
Right.
Can I do it this way? Can I do it this way? Can I do it this way? And then I would try it the other way. Can I do it? Start with that and go into the middle. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's actually getting me the mark even better. And so once I identified those marks, then I would make those tool practice sheets to try and build that automaticity. But for me, I feel like I needed to actually try it on a drawing first, because then I would experience live. Oh, that works so much better. God damn it.
You're alerting you're alerting yourself to the idiosyncrasies.
Yeah, like which ones. Oh, and there's the triangle mark I wanted. Yeah, which ones am I not understanding? And then I can go do the more intentional, like what I'm doing now. This is actually a really good example. Now I'm just making a mess, but it's intention tool play.
Right.
And oh, that's so good. There was some of those. Where were those at that I was trying to get those marks?
All right.
I
Well,
was thinking he was going like this and then dragging out, but
Mr. Samura, we'll have round two at some other later date.
yeah, because I'm enjoying myself with this chopstick way too much. I picked a drawing that I could finish too quick. I'm kind of sad. Yeah, so last week we recommended everyone try playing with razor blades, which was pretty dangerous recommendation. This week we're going to recommend just go buy some chopsticks. I'd be curious too if people watching do try it. I would like to see your chopsticks.
Yes.
Like I would like to see what the other thing is that I haven't done is I haven't even put it on the round end. So
Right.
I haven't even tried that yet. He might be flipping back and forth.
That is an excellent point, because then you have got a built-in finer version of it right there.
Well, and also different kind of marks. Like you could make dots. You could,
Right.
Actually, that gets a lot of the marks too. So,
All right.
but I would be interesting to see if people do find chopsticks that have different shapes on the end, or for some reason, I imagine chopsticks having triangular shapes on them. If people find different chopsticks, what kind of different marks do. So send us photos of your chopsticks, basically, and the drawings you make with them.
Pics.
Or your pics of sticks. Like
right, pics of sticks. There we go.
Pick
All right,
sticks.
thanks, guys.